Welcome to the Two Wealth Show, a show that shares how you can create real wealth for you and your family. I'm one of your hosts, Justin Bogard, and my co-host is Elizabeth Sickles, aka Super E. I am a real estate note investor, specializing in performing residential real estate debt. I find the deals, acquire them for my own portfolio, as well as educate investors while walking them through the process of owning a real estate note. My co-host Super E, a real estate investor, specializing in short-term rentals and the management of them. She connects investors with short-term tenants and manages everything in between. Our show is sponsored by PATHNOTES and Elizabeth MAORA. You can find out more information by visiting our websites at brightpathnotes.com and elizabethmaora.com. It is episode 11 of season 3. I got my good, dear, close personal friend, my co-host, Elizabeth MAORA Sickles, aka Super E. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I just got back from a vacation and conference, so it's great to see everybody again.
Where at?
It was in Florida, Miramar Beach, so it's an hour and a half drive from the Pensacola airport.
Okay. And this was a conference on real estate?
Vacation rentals.
Vacation rentals. What are those?
So 192 people. It was great because it's a smaller conference. So it was fantastic. We raised $205,000 for advocacy fund. A lot of good stuff going on in vacation rentals.
That's awesome. And you're advocating for legislation or?
That's correct. So just to give everybody an idea, just real quick, this was for VRMA for all over the U.S., but in the state of Florida, the hotel industry has 83 lobbyists, and we have none. That's just the state of Florida. So it was a great event. And how are you doing, Mr. Bogard?
I'm doing well. It seems like the pandemic has slowed down enough to where things are starting to get back to normal. Myself, I've been to, I think, 2 live events already in the past couple months, and the real estate dynamic is getting interesting. People are definitely looking for ways to deploy capital and recapitalize. So it's fun to reinvent what we do in the real estate note business. And so I'm sure we'll be discussing that in a later episode, but we have more important things to discuss for today.
We do. We have a very special guest. Her name is Morgan Ciani. Did I say that right, Justin?
Ciani.
I should know this. Ciani, thank you. Ciani. She's very Italian from New York.
She's probably not going to come on camera now that you butchered up her name.
Morgan is an advisor and now partner at Cultivate Advisors. And so we're going to talk about her role in helping small businesses succeed. So Morgan, welcome to our show.
Thank you, guys. Good
You're
to be
welcome.
here.
So I know Morgan, my friend in Cali, who's also a real estate investor, big time real estate investor. She also owns coffee shops, hired Morgan last year specifically to help her in her coffee shop, and just would not leave me alone until I also hired Morgan. And Morgan is worth her weight. Again, so she is a business advisor. And Morgan, do you want to tell our audience just a little bit about your background and why you are qualified to help us run our businesses better?
Sure. So I actually was in the fitness industry for about 20 years. Took a left turn from going into medicine and went into fitness. Through my career, organically and then by plan, grew it to several locations across the country, from San Diego back to the East Coast to New York. And within that, was able to run them with managing operators, create some licensed trademark programs that created some, I'll air quote, passive revenue, because there's no such thing as real passive revenue, but created some passive revenue. And then from there, successfully exited out of those locations, sold them to the operating managers, and then went into mid-sized companies to help them grow to second, third, fourth locations within the fitness industry. And then the evolution started to happen where I went into the restaurant industry, the retail, the real estate space with developers, and then now with Cultivate Advisors, which we are industry agnostic. So we work with over 150 different types of industries.
That's awesome. Morgan, what time frame was this when you were for the fitness companies that you were working with and helped cultivate?
Yeah, so around 2006, 2005 is when I opened my first location. It was very organic how it happened. I'm from New York, went to San Diego. I won a contract with the Navy and created the land-based conditioning for Navy SEAL buds. And then from that, as I was training that and working through that program, I just started getting clients. And then I had too many clients to work in someone else's space. So I had to open my space. And then from there, created, like I said, these like modules and these license programs so that I could replicate the business across, multiple locations.
That's awesome. What was it like going through the financial crisis for what you were doing?
Yes, that's a very good question. That's when the life that I thought was going to be glamorous became not so glamorous.
Yeah.
The good thing is, and this is where I think, as a business owner and whatever that spectrum or scope is of being a business owner, right, is really understanding the financials and really understanding your cash flow and having a very healthy cash flow in the business. Because 2009 was tough. I survived because I did have healthy cash flow. I survived because I had a healthy product that was, that wasn't me. That was actually a product and a service. And I was lucky because I was in really good locations. The one location that I had to kind of sever was the Jersey City location, because it was where all the financial companies came after 9/11. And so they, that was the hardest hit. And it was a good choice. It was like, you figure out where you're bleeding money and you plug that and you move on. And so being able to pivot and make those decisions, which brings, kind of what happened last year, right? Like the business owners that we work with, it was understanding like, okay, let's talk about cash flow. Let's get that cash flow healthy. Let's pivot. And now let's continue to grow.
Awesome.
And I will say too, it wasn't just because Nicole, I saw on the sidelines how Nicole's business grew for Morgan. And one of the things that was super helpful was that they do a 2-hour consult complimentary for folks. I mean, that's how dedicated Cultivate Advisors is to the small businesses in the US, which is really phenomenal.
2 hours is a long time.
Yeah. And during the pandemic, we, I wish I had the exact number, but as a team, we have 40 advisors. We dedicated like full time being available to business owners for those advising sessions in order to help people get just a grasp on like EIDL, on PPP loans, and all of those, things that were hard for people to navigate because one, they were stressed. Two, they were, trying to survive, not thrive. They were just like, we're just trying to survive. And so, the amount of hours that Cultivate Advisors and the advisors within Cultivate dedicated was astronomical.
And not only that, but it's also valuable. And what was cool about Morgan, we had our session and I was like, well, I wasn't quite ready to pull the trigger. And then she checked up on me, and it's not like, you can tell it wasn't because it was a check the box. It was like, because she actually cares. So even though I wasn't a client. So that's a huge difference, because I've had coaches before. I've had both personal coaches and business coaches. And there's a clear difference with Cultivate. And in that, like you mentioned that you guys are industry agnostic. So can you talk about some of the different industries that your clients are in, or just Cultivate as a whole are in?
Sure, of course. Yeah, I mean, we're everywhere. Well, we're B2B, B2C, right? And we're pretty much a 50-50 split on that. Um, and then in terms of actual industries, I mean, we have everything from, like you mentioned, coffee shops to law firms to retail to dentists to IT firms, MSP. Um, I have a client that makes teeth. So, I mean,
cool.
yeah, I know I mean, I've sat down with people. I'm like, wow, this is a business. Okay, let's talk about this. Like websites that just generate ad space, and I mean, it's incredible. And the thing that has that is, I think, what sets us apart. I mean, I think there are multiple things, but just talking on the specific industry agnostic piece is we're not coming in to be the expert in the industry. That's the business owner. We're coming in to be the expert in business. And I can speak for myself as, when I first would, opened my business, I was passionate about the thing, but I wasn't strong in all of the other parts of the business, right? And I had to lean in and get support. And so that's where we come in. People open a business because they're either passionate or they see an opportunity, right? They're like,
Yeah.
okay, I see this demand. I'm going to create. I'm going to have the supply there. And we come in and we go, okay, great. We're going to let you lean in and become a partner with you in this business at non-equity to make sure that we're getting you to the vision that you have, whether it's the growth, whether it's the exit, whether it's just maintaining. But we're gonna provide that support where your joint is weak.
Morgan, I'm sure there's a lot of things that small businesses make mistakes on that, are obvious to you. What are some of the common ones that you run into where you can go immediately and be like, okay, here's a hole I can plug pretty quickly and help you a little bit and get on your way?
Yeah, I think it's truly the deep dive on financials. The financials is it's a huge piece.
Yeah.
It's uncomfortable, a lot of times for business owners, because maybe it's the thing that they're not great at.
Mm-hmm.
It's uncomfortable to dive into the numbers and really get a clear understanding of where they are in terms of cash flow. But that is truly the thing that I see the most success, because the financials is like the hub, right? And this is kind of our methodology. We look at it as like a turbine engine, right? Or a fan or whatever you want to look at. And the financials is the hub, and it feeds the air to the propellers, right? So it feeds the air to sales. It feeds the air to marketing, which is all on that growth side of the business. And then we look at capacity, which is recruiting and leadership. And so in order to have all of those working, the financials has to be there. We have to know, what's the end goal? Okay, great. Here's the end goal. Let's reverse engineer that back. And let's look at, okay, in a year, what does that mean? Over quarters, what does that mean? Monthly, what does that mean? Now let's break that down into KPIs and metrics and initiatives that are going to help you get there.
Awesome. And for those, just a reminder, your website is cultivateadvisors.com. And for those that are watching the video portion on this on the Bright Path Notes YouTube channel or Elizabeth MAORA's YouTube channel as well, you can see the websites listed on here just over Morgan's picture. Unfortunately, Morgan had a technical difficulty with the camera, so we can't get to see what she looks like or the background. Unfortunately, it happens, right?
It's nothing exciting. It's a white wall. I was in Florida for the past couple months, which would have been a much better background, but just got back to Chicago and I'm just a white wall.
This was your chance to say that you were in Rome and you're just like,
I know,
not going to do a reception. You just,
the glamour life.
Right.
Can you also, I just want to touch base on a couple of acronyms. So Morgan said earlier, B2C and B2B. So that's business to consumer, like coffee shops. And then they also do B2B, so business to business. And it's really important because, we have so many listeners that they're in all different types of businesses. And just the fact that you guys are so agnostic and can help businesses wherever they are get to where they want to be is really huge.
Yeah, and I think that's that's a lot of times when I sit down with people for the first time, they're like, "Yeah, my business is just unique." It might be, but the business portion of your business is not, right? And I've learned to kind of have a firm hand in that, to say like, I get it, and that's, we're qualifying you as much as you're qualifying us, because you have to be an expert in business, otherwise this isn't going to be a good fit. Because we're not coming in as a consultant, we're not coming in as a service provider. We're truly coming in to partner with a business owner to help them succeed in what their vision is.
That's a huge distinction, I think, and from what I've seen, what makes Cultivate so so successful.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely agree. I don't want, of course, I'm going to agree with that, right? Because I'm sitting here talking about Cultivate Advisors, but I can agree with that because I was in the consulting world, right? And I was doing things for businesses as almost like a pseudo operator in the business with them, and there becomes a stop point for that, because that one thing is completed, right? But then there's still all these other gaps that the business owner has, and that's what really does separate us, and what where we can say, here's where we come in and partner, rather than here's where we come in and consult. Everything is done bespoke to the business, and it's not like, hey, here's a sales process, try the sales process and let us know how it works.
Big difference.
Yeah. I like how you are honing in on the fact that you're partnering with the business owner as opposed to, consulting them. I think that's just an important distinction. So I'm glad you guys brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is 100% a part of not only our language, but our culture. And it's our culture internally as well. Like I had mentioned, we have over 40 advisors, and we lean into each other all the time. I mean, Elizabeth has been a privy to that as well. Like I've brought advisors in that I'm like, you know what, they're just really good at this thing, and I'm going to let them move us faster.
So what does the process look like as far as like how often are you engaging with the business owner? Like, is this at the beginning? I assume there's a lot more conversations, and then as you give homework assignments or help them in certain areas, I'm sure there's a longer length of time to when you reach back out to them. Is that what it looks like?
It does not. No,
okay.
we are fully partnered with the business and the business owner, and sometimes the team as well. So really it does depend on the business, the size of the team, the needs of the business, the gaps that there are in the business. And so, but generally, like if I'm speaking in a general way, we have 2-hour meetings a month. And in those meetings, depending on the cadence and again, what the roadmap is, it's generally, financials is absolutely one of those meetings in the month, where we deep dive on what happened, what has to happen, where's the gap. And then, there's the strategy portion. And then, whatever other propeller, right? Like the sales, the marketing, whatever right now is like part of the initiatives is what we handle in the other 2-hour meeting. There's also soundboarding, which I think is a very valuable portion of the meeting time, where, and Elizabeth, I'm sure you can speak to this just in terms of like, having to soundboard, where a lot of solutions are created in the what happens in the like day-to-day of the business, right? And then there are other times where, a client, may just say like, hey, do you have a couple minutes? I have a question and I need some time. And again, that's where we're not billing on time, where it's like, yeah, okay, that's going to cost you. It's like, yes, of course, I'm your partner. Here's where I have some time. Does this work? And so that's the general scope. It's like 2-hour meetings, and then the availability if you need something. I'm obviously there for you, or we're obviously there for you.
So you really have to sink your teeth in at the beginning to kind of get a landscape of like, okay, where are all these problems at? And then, kind of start from there. And I wasn't surprised when you said the financials were the number one, thing that you see that people don't have a grasp on. I'm going to throw myself in that category because I learned that quickly as well.
Sure. Yeah. And part of our foundation is financials. And when we talk about the financials of a business, it's not just top line revenue. Mm-hmm. It's that bottom line, right? It's like top line revenue is ego, right? It's like, here's how much my business makes, but what's in your pocket, right? That's a healthy business. Are Wednesdays really stressful for you because it's payroll? That shouldn't happen, right? And so when we look at the results that we've had as a firm with our clients, that's what we look at. Obviously, sure, are we growing top line? Yes, of course, right? But are we growing bottom line? And and even in a pandemic year, we did both. When we look at clients that we've had for a 12-month period of time, and in 2019. Our average growth in bottom line profit was 108%. And so, we walk the walk and talk the talk.
Nice. Can you expand on that, the bottom line versus top line, the 108% growth?
Yeah, totally. So, that top line is like the revenue your business is bringing in. Mm-hmm. The profitability is what's left over after everything is paid out, what's left over, with your, loans, with your payroll, with your fixed expenses, what's left over. And so that's where we say, okay, great. We're doing a good job because we're keeping businesses healthy, that they have money left over to continue to grow the business or pay themselves, right? Yeah. Or like reinvest or open a second location. And, if I'm sharing just like personal results, through the pandemic, that was the focus. And, I have a client that, over that pandemic year grew profitability by 10% year over year, which is huge.
Yeah. I like
in the service industry.
Yeah. Morgan, I like what you said about when you talk about top line revenue and people that are bragging maybe about, I may do have $1 million in revenue. So I feel like I'm doing awesome. But if they have, $900,000 in underlying things they have to pay out, it's, it doesn't seem like it's that profitable.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Go ahead, Justin.
I'm sorry. Looks like we were going to talk at the same time. I yield to you.
Morgan, can you also talk about how many clients do you guys have nationwide right now?
Yeah, so we have, we're actually North America, so including Canada. And then we have clients overseas as well. Barcelona, Spain, Australia, I mean, like all over. But we have over 500 active clients wow. within our community. And part of another thing that sets us apart is we have a community for business owners. So we have a landing page for our clients it's almost like if you look at it as like a Cultivate LinkedIn, right? Where business owners can connect with one another, they can network with one another, they can lean into one another for best practices. They can ask for referrals. As well as we do monthly events. So we do a networking event one day a week or one day a month. We do a CEO webinar, which is live with our CEO, Casey Clark. That's one day a month. And we do it was one time a year, a live event. We're now doing it 2 times a year called Catapult. It's our conference where business owners come in and it's very outcome driven. So we do breakout sessions, we have keynote speakers, and basically also just give business owners high fives and let them take a day out of the business and work on the business rather than work in it and be stuck in the weeds.
That was that has been one of the big things that Morgan has helped me with as well, because when you're in the business, that's all you're thinking about instead of working on the business. You can actually grow it. So it's just, man, all those little things make such a huge difference.
Yeah, you're exactly right. We've talked about this before, Elizabeth. You'll be in the business and you'll be grinding it out and you'll be looking down. All of a sudden you look up, it's 2 years later and you're like, I haven't really done the other things that I'm supposed to be doing as the owner or as the CEO, and figure out where I need to put my growth pattern, what it is, what's my end game, right? So yeah, I'm sure that's a very common thing. Morgan, I was going to ask you real quick, do you recommend, or does it matter if a small business is just like a startup, like a very small solopreneur, or like how do you guys work with that level of an entrepreneur, or is it more like they have to have a little bit of proof of concept before you'll be able to work with them?
Yeah. So when we look, and remember, it's that industry expert, right? And so when we're looking at an ideal client, and that's a big part of our discovery process. It's twofold, right? It's reciprocal. The client should be vetting us as well as we want to make sure it's the right fit, not only for the client, but for Cultivate, right? Because it's an investment. And so having like a revenue range of 500K, having multiple employees, it just depends on the type of business. Sometimes a widget is more expensive than another, right? And so that can change that revenue mark. And then I'll keep kind of repeating this industry expertise. Those are three really important qualifications. And then, through that free advising session that Elizabeth mentioned, there is a deep dive, and we do go through financials and we do go through some modeling to uncover, is this going to be a good investment? Is there going to be a return on investment, a good ROI for you making this decision? And in that free advising session, we do act fiduciary to determine this is or is not a good decision.
That's awesome. You guys do a lot of work, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, we do. And one thing I'll mention about our advisors is we have all been business owners.
Okay.
So we come from that entrepreneurship background. So we've all successfully owned and exited businesses. So we not only do we have the skill, but we have the empathy.
Yeah.
As prior business owners. Yeah, totally. Right. Like, there's the transition curve, right? And everything. And it's, that blind optimism to, oh my gosh, what am I doing? To, I don't know if I want to do this anymore, to, this is great. It's amazing. Right. And so we've been on that roller coaster. And I think that is also a really important piece of having that soundboarding and that, like I said, like empathetic approach to advising.
So again, Morgan's website is cultivateadvisors.com. And I kind of have one closing statement for you, and I'm sure Super E's got a couple as well. And my question to you, Morgan, is if somebody decides they want to start a business, is there any kind of free advice that you would give them to say, here's maybe some things you should focus on first before you jump into stuff? Because I know some people are just like, well, I need to market first. Well, now I need to build my product, or or does it depend on the industry?
Yeah, I would say that the floor, and speaking real estate terms, right? The foundation has to be solid in order to start building accessory rooms across the floor. And looking at it that way as like your financials, right? Mm-hmm. Do you have a 5-year growth pro forma? Do you have a projection for the next 5 years? Do you have the ability to break that projection down year over year? Do you understand what the KPIs, the key performance indicators are that are going to help you get to that goal, the metrics that you're going to track to get to that goal? And then, just again, like, do you have a solid understanding of the industry so that you can actually drive the bus to get to those numbers.
Right. Great answer. Elizabeth?
Morgan, thank you so much for being on. Thank you all that not only you're doing, but also Cultivate is doing for small businesses, which is the engine of America. So we appreciate you being on today and kind of helping our all of our listeners, whether you're watching or you're listening. Just know that there are people out here, no matter what area you're building your wealth, and if you're wanting to get to the point where you are building your real estate wealth, Morgan and her team can definitely help you get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me. It's I love to preach and evangelize Cultivate, of course, right? But it is because it's something that not only, I'm extremely passionate about. And that's like, we talk about this a lot in Cultivate is, what's your why? My why is, I was going into medicine because I wanted to help people. And I went into fitness because I wanted to help people, and I work with small business owners because I believe the same thing, Elizabeth, that entrepreneurship is the thread, that creates the economy in this country. And to be able to help a small business that helps their community, that it provides employment and that provides revenue, and it's so important to me. And so I thank you for having me on, because I do love to just kind of evangelize this. So
awesome. We appreciate it, and you're welcome.
Absolutely, Morgan. Thank you so much for being on episode 11 of the 2 Wealth Show season 3. And I'm Justin Bogard with Bright Path Notes.
I'm Elizabeth with Elizabeth MAORA.
All right. Until next time. See you guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
The 2 Wealth Show is produced by Justin Bogard and Super E, sponsored by Bright Path Notes and Elizabeth MAORA. Thanks for listening and watching for our show.